Okay, so it's been a while since I've made the last episode of this series, about 6 months to be exact. Hopefully you like useless information because it's gonna be plenty here. This time I promise there won't be any stupid technicalities, so all should be above board. Alas, it's not gonna be any easier than last time since these questions should be rather difficult. If you're new here though, the gist of it is that there are 3 presented facts and your goal is to guess the one fake one. Anyway though, do you think you can know them all? Well, this is part 3, and let's begin. The Aqua Scepter can pierce more than 5 enemies in normal worlds, but not on Don't Dig Up or Get Fixed Boy worlds. This is because of the hard buff the Scepter gets on the seed due to a progression switch with the bubble gun. Blade Staff should not be used for Empress of Light, as its defense piercing is not enough to cut through the Empress's shield, even with I-Core. This severely nerfs its damage. The Dungeon Guardian and Daytime Empress of Light are the only entities in Terraria that deal over 1000 damage in one hit. Did you get it? The Aqua Scepter and Golden Shower both shoot multiple projectiles per shot, so immunity frames do not let them pass through. As you see here, the first projectiles do stop on the 5th dummy, but I-frames allow subsequent projectiles to pass through. As the Aqua Scepter uses static immunity on normal worlds, other instances of the Aqua Scepter can pass right through the targets that have immunity, and thus don't use up their piercing. However, since on Don't Dig Up the Scepter gets buffed to use local immunity, Scepter projectiles can no longer trigger immunity for other Scepter projectiles, meaning the piercing works as it should. The Empress of Light has 50 defense in her first form and 60 in her second, which is enough to outclass the 40 define defense piercing of I-Core and Blade Staff. This matters a lot because Blade Staff hits so rapidly, so a flat damage modification like defense matters greatly. So if for some reason you want to use Blade Staff against Empress, or even First Phase Duke as well, you gotta get Betsy's Wrath. Quite unfortunate. Number 3 is false due to the rare enemy known as the Rune Wizard. He deals 600 contact damage on Master Mode, exceeding every single boss save for these two. On Legendary Mode though, damage is boosted even further, allowing our boy here to consistently deal over 1000 damage per hit. Part 2. Aside from the Zenith, the Coin Gun is the most powerful single target weapon in the game when fully optimized. The party girl is not underage, despite appearing to be so. Floating in water using a mount like the inner tube will grant you +5 fishing power. Did you get it? The party girl is actually not underage despite being called the party girl, and having a very childish aesthetic. We know this because unlike the Angler and Princess, which are children, you can actually kill the party girl. This is a rather obscure feature from 1.4.4, but using the inner tube or mollusk whistle in water does actually grant you a tangible boost of 5 fishing power, as does the tipsy buff. This is actually a pretty useful tip, especially in early game fishing builds, since 10 fishing power actually matters quite a bit. So, the false one is the first one. No, even with stealth mode in a max optimized build, the Coin Gun still can't quite beat the last Prism. The Disintegrator Beam does 50% more damage per hit and also fires 50% faster, which is still enough to edge it out ahead of the Coin Gun, even with mana sickness from greater mana potions. What both have in common though, is that they both can't hold a candle to the Zenith. Part 3. The Death Sickle does not actually fire once per swing like the Terror Blade or Flying Dragon, but will actually skip swings if you boost its melee speed fast enough. Prismite is the rarest fish in terms of fishing rarity to be used in the buff potion, standing at a rarity of Rare. Despite having no true tag damage, the Dark Harvest ability gives it a functional 10 tag damage. Did you get it? The Death Sickle actually does have this weird behavior, which can be seen when you have a high amount of melee speed buffs on. In 1.4.4, the Dark Harvest's Dark Energy ability, which basically hits nearby enemies for 10 damage every time a minion hits a target, was also made to apply to the target enemy. Basically, Dark Harvest procs a 10 damage hit on both the target and its surroundings, instead of just its surroundings now. This basically equals 10 tag damage, and is generally an amazing buff to the Dark Harvest. The wrong one is actually number 2, Prismite. Sure, it's a rare fish. I've lost plenty of brain cells farming like over 100 of them during my Legendary Mode playthrough, but they aren't the rarest. Flarefin Koi is actually rarer, with a rarity of Very Rare, which is about 2 times rarer than the rare tier. Part 4. Mechdusa, unlike For the Worthy Skeletron Prime that makes it part of it, cannot destroy blocks with its bombs. Vile Spit fired by the Eater of Worlds is identical to those fired by Corruptors, which is part of why it's so annoying. The Golden Slime does not actually get the typical massive stat boosts after hard mode and post Terra that are afforded to regular enemies on expert and higher difficulties, instead maintaining a pretty similar stat throughout the entire game. Did you get it? Medusa does not destroy blocks and get fixable. It's one of the rare bones the devs actually throw you on that hell of a seed. The Golden Slime does actually have some really weird stat scaling curve. It doesn't gain any stats in hard mode, and post Terra it actually gets worse, which is kind of funny. Alas, the incorrect part is the Vile Spit. There was a time from 1.3.0.1 to 1.3.0.4 when they were identical, but this was not long for this world. The damage from the Eater of Worlds Spit was halved in the following updates, and the Eater Vile Spit was moved onto a completely separate NPC ID in 1.4.2. They might look identical, but they are absolutely not. Finally, Part 5. I tried to make this one as hard as possible, but still reasonable. Palladium armor does not actually increment buff regeneration directly, but instead artificially increments the internal regeneration tick timer at a rate that would equal 2 HP per second. It is the only item that does this. The Xenostaff had its fire rate slowed by 33.3% over the course of 1.4, but it gained extra teleportation leeway. The following items can be shimmered to make Ambrosia, a building permabuff which is made by shimmering any fruit. 5 examples of these fruit are apples, peaches, lemons, dragon fruits, and grapes. This one could either be really hard or really easy. The Palladium armor fact is so obscure that it didn't even make it into my life regeneration video. While most buff regen directly buffs the buff regen stat, Palladium armor buffs a separate stat called a regen counter. Basically, this stat goes from negative 120 to positive 120, and every time it hits 120, it sets it to 0 and increments your HP by 1. By giving you 4 counterpoints 60 times a second, it effectively gives you 2 HP per second of regeneration. I have no clue why it still does this. As for the Xenostaff, it has been nerfed over the updates for some reason. I don't know how this affects its damage though, as it's still a goated minion and definitely the best for killing Daytime Empress. The incorrect one is the last one. This one is kinda tricky and technical, but eagle-eyed or OG viewers will note that grapes in Terraria are special. They are both much more powerful than typical fruit-like items, and are also technically not fruit. They can't make fruit salad, nor are they able to shimmer into ambrosia. No clue why it's like this, but it is. And that's the end. How many did you get right? Do you think they were hard or easy? Let me know, and hope you enjoyed. And also, for the record, my first 2 Truths in a Lie video came out a whole month before JaDropping's first short, so I came first. Don't know why that matters. Hello, if you haven't subscribed and enjoy my content, I ask you to subscribe, as only 18% of you are. Here are some other similar videos I've made that you might enjoy. Either way though, thank you for watching, and good day and goodbye.